If you drive through northern Maine after midnight, you might hear your GPS suddenly whisper, "She's still in the back seat." Most people write that off as local folklore, but a closed police file from October 14th, 2025, details an incident that moves this story out of the realm of urban legend and into a documented crime scene. The initial reports looked like a standard accident. A rideshare vehicle had violently crashed into a guardrail, leaving the driver, Marcus Hale, trapped and barely alive. Investigators immediately cited driver exhaustion and heavy rain, but the accident report overlooked a second body found at the scene. A middle-aged man was lying in the mud near the overturned car. An autopsy confirmed he hadn't been hit by the vehicle. He suffered 0 blunt force trauma. This forensic diagram shows exactly where the man was found relative to the car. Notice the 2 smaller markers isolated here in the mud. Those were his eyeballs. They had been expelled from his skull and left completely intact on the ground. The official explanation of severe weather cannot account for a man's eyes leaving his head without physical impact. The physical evidence at the crash site points to a localized event that authorities decided to quietly bury. To understand how Marcus Hale ended up at that specific crash site, we have to look at the 9 hours leading up to it. He was navigating a messy divorce and surviving on gas station coffee, taking rural night shifts because the double pay outweighed his exhaustion. Looking at this recreation of his final rideshare request, the gaps are obvious. There is no user rating, no profile picture, just a pickup location on the deeply isolated Blackwood Road under the name Evelyn. The GPS routed Marcus off the main highway and deep into the woods. He slowed down on a narrow dirt road with 0 visibility and no cell service. Suddenly, a pale woman in a soaked dark coat was standing directly beside his passenger window. She climbed into the back seat without sneaking. 10 minutes into the drive, the scent of the pouring rain inside the cabin was replaced by something else. It smelled like freshly turned grave dirt. Then, the app's navigation failed. A static-filled voice crackled through the phone, using Marcus's name and warning him not to look back. The screen snapped black, displaying a single, jagged sentence that caused Marcus to violently crash. The entity operating as Evelyn intentionally manipulated the application's routing algorithm, using Marcus as a vessel to physically reach a pre-selected coordinate. Marcus woke up trapped upside down, his ribs fractured and blood dripping into his eyes. Through the shattered windshield, he could see his phone weakly flickering. The app still displayed a trip status, arriving in 2 minutes. Heavy footsteps crunched through the gravel outside. A middle-aged man in a heavy jacket appeared in the pouring rain, shining a flashlight into the wreckage. He moved toward Marcus to help, but as the flashlight beam swept across the interior, it illuminated the back seat. The man froze, staggering backward. Evelyn was sitting perfectly still in the back of the destroyed car, staring directly at the stranger. The man collapsed to his knees, recognizing the passenger as the daughter he had murdered and buried in those exact woods. For years, he had maintained a story to the police that his daughter had simply run away from home. Now she was sitting inside a crashed car, parked directly over her own hidden grave. The missing person reports, the isolated dirt road, and the hijacked GPS now align with a single purpose. Evelyn used Marcus's car as a tool to geographically corner her killer at the exact scene of his crime. Inside the wreckage, Evelyn finally spoke. Her voice sounded like wet gravel grinding underwater. She tilted her head sideways, revealing completely hollow eye sockets, and instructed Marcus to ask her father where her eyes were. Evelyn let out a scream that shattered every remaining window in the car. Outside, the father's eyes were forced from his skull, dropping wetly into the mud before he collapsed dead onto the highway. Inside the car, Evelyn sat quietly in the back seat. The GPS calmly announced the trip was completed. The rear door swung open on its own, and she stepped into the dense woods, vanishing. The horrific state of the father's body mirrored the desecrated condition in which he had left his victim. When authorities found Marcus 6 hours later, they quietly closed the missing person investigation. They officially attributed the father's death to severe weather, deliberately erasing Marcus's testimony from the public record. But executing her revenge did not grant Evelyn peace. The violent trauma of her murder anchored her to that stretch of highway, leaving her trapped inside the digital networks that run through Route 9. Drivers working late-night shifts in northern Maine still report severe application glitches. Isolated travelers occasionally receive phantom requests from an unrated profile, pulling them toward the woods. If you were driving alone after midnight and your GPS unexpectedly rerouted you into the forest while whispering about a passenger in the back seat, would you keep driving or stop the car immediately? Let us know in the comments.